Hello chess enthusiasts, my name is Miha and welcome to my chessrealm YouTube channel. Another interesting game from the recently ended FIDE World Team Championship from the 4th round, duel between Poland and Azerbaijan. On the first board playing Radoslaw Wojtaszek and Teimour Radjabov. Let's see what happened. Radoslaw Wojtaszek had white pieces and he started with c4, knight to f6, knight to c3, e5, and we have an English opening. White continues with knight to f3, knight to c6, g3, and now black strikes the center with d5, pretty much standard moves. C-pawn captures on d5, knight recaptures, bishop goes to g2, bishop to c5, also pretty much according to the theory. And now white castles king side and black does the same. You might think that white can simply grab this pawn on e5, because if knight captures on e5, this knight on d5 is double attack, but here black simply captures knight on c3, c-pawn recaptures, and now black can capture knight on e5. Of course, white gains piece back by playing d4, forking both pieces. After bishop to d6, d-pawn captures on e5, bishop recaptures, material is equal, and pretty much the position too. Okay, so much for the opening theory. So in the game, white plays queen to c2. Black has to be careful because after, let's say, a random move a6, white simply captures knight on d5. After queen recapture, we have knight to g5, and white threatens checkmate on h7 along with capturing queen on e5. Of course, the only move is interference with e4, but then simply knight captures, bishop on c5 is double attack, and also discover attack on the queen is prepared, so this is already losing for black. So in the game, black plays knight to d4, attacking queen on c2, queen goes to e4, double attack on this knight on d5, so black has decided to trade some material. Knight captures on c3, d-pawn recaptures, and black has decided to trade more material. Since this knight is attacked, knight captures on f3. Of course, either queen or a bishop can capture, but white has decided to open more files, so e-pawn captures on f4, pawn on e5 is still under attack, rook to e8, protecting the pawn, and now rook to e1, releasing the pressure on the e file, and now black plays c6, preparing this queen to b6. You will see immediately why. White has decided to play f4. Of course, black cannot capture pawn on f4, because after e-pawn captures on f4, this rook on e8 is double attack, and black loses the rook. So black has decided to play queen to b6, protecting this bishop, threatening with bishop to f2, forking both king and the rook, and also putting some pressure on this pawn on b2, who is protected only by the bishop. Well, white could have tried simply with rook to f1, defending this pawn, but white has decided to develop further, so bishop goes to e3, temporarily giving up on this pawn on b2, and black says, okay, let's trade some more material. Bishop captures on e3, queen recaptures, and now queen captures on b2, and white captures pawn on e5, and now material again is equal. Well, one black piece is still undeveloped, but white has, let's say, a little bit worse pawn structure, so let's say black has a slight edge. You might think that black could simply try with f6, gaining this pawn, because white cannot capture, because then there goes our queen. Well, in this case, simply bishop to e4, very unpleasant. Even if f-pawn captures on e5, queen to d3, threatening to capture this pawn on h7. After h6, simply queen to d6, threatening with queen to g6, here with very unpleasant attack. The only way is interference, bishop to e6, but after queen to bishop to g6, attacking this rook, and this pawn is going to be captured soon, and white would be better here. Okay, so in the game, black plays bishop to f5, developing the last piece, also putting this bishop on this diagonal, preventing this unpleasant bishop to e4, and also protecting this b1 square, because white at some point definitely will try rook to b1, targeting this pawn on b7, so white plays a4. Now white doesn't have to worry about this protection of this a pawn. And now black plays f6. Of course, now bishop to e4 is no longer a threat. Let's say white, of course, cannot capture, because then there goes our queen. So white defends with f4, and now black plays rook from a goes to d8. threatening with rook to d3, attacking the queen, or maybe even worse, invading here on the second rank, targeting this bishop, very unpleasant. Of course, white has to come up with, let's say, a good response, and also white at some point wants to try this rook to b1, which is currently protected by the bishop. So here white sets up a very good plan. Bishop goes to f1, first of all preventing this rook to b3, and threatening with the bishop to f4 check. Okay, first black plays f4 captures on e5, and now white plays bishop to c4 check. Now one option is, of course, if black simply removes the queen, like the king, let's say to h8, but then rook goes to a2, attacking the queen, because a2 square is now protected. After queen goes back to b6, okay, white can simply capture, a-pawn recapture, and the position is rather equal. But in the game, black defends the check with bishop to e6, and white has succeeded in his plan. First, white plays a Zwischenzug or intermediate move. Rook from a goes to b1, attacking the queen. Queen goes to c2, and only now bishop captures here, bishop on a6. Rook recaptures, and now white captures pawn on b7. Again, material is equal, but white has invaded here on the 7th rank. And at some point, white will definitely try queen to a8, putting a lot of pressure here on the 7th rank. But black is on the move and plays rook to h6, targeting this pawn on h2. Of course, white has to be careful that, let's say, a random move, rook captures on a7. We have made in a couple of moves, queen captures on h2, check, king to f1, queen to h1. If king to f2, rook to h2, checkmate immediately. If king goes to e2, then rook to h2, check. The only move is to defend with queen to f2, queen to e4 check, king to f1, rook to h1, queen to g1, and queen to f3 checkmate. So here white could easily try with, let's say, h4, because after h4 this pawn is protected. Invasion on the h5 is no longer possible. This pawn on e5 is still hanging, so rook would probably have to go back here to d6, and white would have a slight edge here. But in the game, white has decided to play a very aggressive move. Rook captures pawn on g7 check. Well, king can either capture rook, but if king doesn't want to capture, then either f8 or h8 are the possibilities. Now let's see. Of course, if king captures rook on g7, it's totally losing, because queen captures on e5, it's check. Now king has, let's say, a few options. Now let's see, if king goes to g6, we have queen to g5, king to f7, the only move, rook to e7, king to f8, and queen to g7 checkmate. If, let's say, king goes to f8, then queen to e7 check, king to g8, queen captured on e8, queen to, sorry, king, let's say, to f7, rook to e7 check, king to g6, queen to g8, king to f5, and after queen to g5 is checkmate. If, let's say, black defends check with rook to f6, queen to e7, double attack on the king and the rook. After, let's say, rook to f7, defending the check, queen captures, let's say, d8, even if queen captures on c3, attacking this rook, we simply have queen to g5 check. King cannot go to h8 because rook goes to d8 and it's mating the next move. So after king to f8, queen to h6 check, the only move, queen to g7 defending, and after queen to d6, again, the only move is king to g8, and after rook to e8. If black doesn't want to defend with queen, because then black loses queen. After rook to f8, we simply have queen to c6. Rook is protected. White will force the trade of more material, and with these two extra pawns, white is winning. Okay, so king captures on g7 is losing. The correct continuation in this position would be king to f8. After king to f8, of course, black still threatens with queen captures on h2. So after, let's say, h4, this rook on g7 is still attached but cannot be captured, because after queen to e5 we have the same variations as before. But here black would simply play rook to e1, forcing the trade. Even if queen captures on e5, simply rook captures on e1 after queen recaptures, king captures on g7, black is rook up, but after queen to e7, white forces the draw because king cannot go to g6 because after queen to g5 we have double attack on king and rook. After king goes to f7, white simply captures rook. Again, white has 2 pawns extra. In this position, king could go to g8, queen to e8, king to g7, queen to e7, and so on. In the game, black decided to play king to h8. Again, black still threatens with queen to h2, so white plays h4. King again cannot capture on g7 because again we have queen to e5, and this is what white threatens anyway. So black plays rook goes back to e6, defending this pawn on e5. And now black threatens to capture this rook on g7. Now white indeed has to remove it. Rook goes to g5, preparing queen to a7, threatening with checkmate here on g7. So black plays e4. Now black can easily capture a pawn on c3 and defend this mate on g7. So here white plays f5, attacking this rook. Rook goes to e7, defending this pawn on a7, and now f6. Of course, rook has to stay here on the 7th rank, protecting this pawn. So black plays rook goes to f7, and now white captures pawn on e4. Now let's see where we are. White is 2 pawns up and offers the trade of queens. Of course, the best option for black would simply be queen would capture on a4, because after a rook recaptures, of course, black gains 1 pawn back. After rook to f6, white is only a pawn up, but this is probably a winning endgame for black. But definitely this will take a lot of precision for black, and black will definitely try his drawing chances here in this endgame. In the game, however, black didn't see in that way and plays queen to c3, and that was a fatal blunder. Now white plays a spectacular move. Queen goes to e8 check. And of course rook on d8 is also attacked. If rook captures on e8, simply rook goes to e8. The only option is rook to f8. After rook captures, it's checkmate. So in the game, black defends with rook to f8, and now white plays f7, preparing this rook to g8. After rook would capture, the f-pawn would simply recapture. Black has tried with queen to d4 check, king goes to h1. Now there aren't any more meaningful check. As stated before, if black plays a random move, let's say a6, rook goes to g8. After rook captures, white promotes to queen or rook, and it's checkmate. If however rook, let's say, captures on e8, simply f-pawn captures, promotes to queen, and white is a pawn up, a rook up, and is winning. If however black would try, let's say, h5, trying to avoid this mate on the last rank, then simply white would play queen to e7, preparing this rook to h5, and then later with queen to g5, let's say queen to d6 doesn't help, simply rook to h5 check, king to g8, queen to g5 check, queen to g6 is the only option, but then we have queen to e5 again check. If king captures on f7, queen to e7 is checkmate. If however black defends with queen to f6, simply rook to g5 check. Now king can only capture on f7, queen to c7. Of course, black can delay the mate for a couple of moves, but after queen to e7 it's checkmate. Anyway, in the game, in this position, Teimour Radjabov realized that there's no point in playing on and resigned the game. So I hope you like this game. I hope you have learned something from it. If you have any questions, my email is below in the description. Of course, I invite you to visit my Instagram page. That's it for now, and see you soon.